Juraj Slafkovsky continues to dominate as he gets a 2-point night, including the game-tying goal. And while the Habs did come up a bit short, there's a lot of positives. While that top line is continuing to be a top 10 line in the NHL. I got a stat to back it up. Plus, Emil Heineman makes his NHL debut. All of that and more on this episode of Habs Digest. But as always, guys, a quick reminder, we are so close to 10,000 subscribers, we can taste it. And you see this? That 58%? That's you guys who are not subscribed, and if you want to be part of the first 10,000, we're pumping out this content even over the Christmas break, so hit that button, you won't regret it. And as always, I'm going to flash with the box score for this game. Feel free to pause and have a look, but boy, Jesse, this was a game. This was a fun game, and while the Habs didn't come out on top at the end, of course, Kirill Kaprizov scores the game-winning goal with 5 seconds left in overtime. It was tough, and penalties really killed the Habs tonight. They showed a ton of resilience, and that's been a theme that we've seen a lot with this young team. Down 2-0, came back. They scored the tying goal late in the third after a Brock Faber goal to put the Minnesota Wild ahead. Were you as impressed with this Montreal performance as I was, despite the loss?
Yes, despite the loss, but I think this young Habs team, they wanted the 2 points. We got the 1 point tonight, but you could see Samuel Snacks, Montembeault, after that game, kind of being a little bit upset. You could tell they wanted those 2 points. And to be honest, I like seeing that from this team. We're down 2-0, and I want to see, okay, they're going to fight back. They're going to kind of stay in this. And they did. They stayed in. They kept fighting to the point where they felt like they kind of deserved those 2 points. Who knows if we're not kind of getting that penalty going into overtime, that kind of changes the dynamics of it a little bit. Anyway, a very, very close game and a good effort all the same.
Yeah, that penalty heading into overtime was questionable at best, that's for sure. They called that officially cross-checking. I don't know. Anyway, feel free to go watch that. The Caufield's that should be illegal what he did. Oh, but anyway, you're very right. That changes the dynamic of the game, of course, heading into overtime. But, one thing I will say, though, that penalty that they took still lasted for a good chunk in regulation, and that was their best penalty kill of the night. And like you said, you could really tell they wanted to at least get that 1 point, but desperately wanted the 2, and they showed they really wanted it. Not quite from the get-go, as Minnesota just dominated the first period. 13 out of the 16 total shots in the first were Minnesota's. It was 13-3. Minnesota was up 2-0 after the first. Rossi was playing well, Boldy was playing well, and it looked like the Habs were down and out. But Jesse, that resilience from this young team, you got to think Marty said something in the locker room, and they came out flying, and that Suzuki Caufield Slaf line was absolutely ever. I actually got a quote I'm going to show about that line. Suzuki said, when you have 3 guys that play together, know where they're going, know what they have to do, it makes it a lot easier than switching guys in and out. Suzuki said, if we can play together and play well for a while, I think Marty will keep us together, and I think that's what the 3 of us kind of envisioned when we got drafted. So it's fun to be here now. We get to play together, and this line, not only that, top 10. Now, this is from my phone. I'm sorry. But coming into this game, they were 10th in the entire NHL for all lines across the entire league for expected goal percentage. And for Suzuki to say that they expected this when they all saw they got drafted, to say they wanted to play together, to see the production being one of the best lines in the league for goal, basically goal efficiency, and then to go out and have 2 goals sort of from that line tonight. One was power play, I believe, but still, there's still the same guys out there. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, backing up those stats, a goal for Suzuki, 2 points for Slafkovsky. What was really interesting tonight was the first period wasn't the best, but in the second period, we were able to adjust. Not only did Marty kind of have some words, but I think he was kind of putting something up for the plans as well. So that was really nice to see, because that defensive style of the Minnesota Wild, the way they're kind of so tight, in that neutral zone, it was we're able to adjust, which was so nice. See, we really took over that second period. We basically did what they did to us in the first. And then, we were the better team for the larger part of that third period, even though we kind of had to battle back. But I mean, like you said with Slaf, so nice to see him getting rewarded for shooting that puck and on that assist to Suzuki as well. Matheson, racking up the assists as well, definitely worth a mention. But again, Slaf, getting that tip goal was so nice, being in front of the net, being in those hard, dirty areas, Suzuki as well. That's really what you have to do. So nice to see him starting to get rewarded for really listening to his coach, going to the front of the net and getting rewarded as a result.
Yeah, those dirty goals, definitely not the cleanest goal that he scored. I mean, off his leg, off Jacob Middleton's leg and into the back of the net. I thought it was Suzuki's second of the night on a very similar play, but no, it's Slaf, and he's a big body there. I mean, and credit to David Savard for realizing, like, oh, he also scored tonight, by the way. Savard,
Yeah,
shout out to him. What
yeah.
a snipe that was. But, I mean, like, look, he's a vet. He knows when he has to put the puck on net. He sees Slafkovsky there. He sees about 10 bodies, it feels like, in front of that net, and he fires and it goes in. But you're very right, Jesse. Montreal started doing a lot of things very right as the game went on. But there was no line that was more noticeable than that first line. But I wanted to give a shout out to the defense, too. I thought the defense tonight, while there were some gaps, and of course that overtime goal, not much you can do. And like the other times Minnesota scored, it felt like they were just pressuring a lot. Like Matheson, I thought had a really, really spectacular game. Savard was very notable. A lot of great defense. And Cayden Guhle tonight, he dropped the mitts. He laid a huge hit, I think, on Kaprizov. And then Rossi was like, I'm going to fight you. And Guhle's like, are you sure? And then just pummeled him into the ground. I think Guhle this was kind of a nice bounce back game for him. And while he definitely wasn't perfect, I thought that Guhle stood out more than he has, at least in the last week or two. He clearly made himself known. He looked really good in overtime. And I hope this is sort of game one of a real good hot streak for him, because he kind of needs it.
That's what I liked about this game too, is from Cayden Guhle, he showed that he wasn't about to let himself or the Montreal Canadiens, for that matter, be bullied by this very physical Minnesota Wild team. And I feel like that was probably a big pivotal moment in this game, was his very big hit on Kaprizov there. And obviously, drawing a penalty as a result. The special team battle was a big one tonight. We went 1 for 5, Minnesota being able to go 2 for 5. Sometimes the difference in all this, it's like, Minnesota took a lot of penalties tonight, but the only problem is so did we.
Yeah.
And always at like the worst times, right, Josh? Like whenever the Habs would score, we would just take a penalty right after. And you have to feel like the way we're battling back, if we're not taking those penalties after we're scoring those goals, we're winning these games, because we had them right where we wanted, right? We score a goal, we're pressing right after, we're buzzing in the third. And then, Gallagher just kind of taking a little bit of a bad penalty there. He wasn't the only one tonight. I think that's probably the difference. We've seen the discipline kind of improve, but with a young team, it's not always going to be linear, right? Sometimes you're going to take a couple steps forward. I think tonight was a little bit of a step back, in terms of discipline, but I'm still happy because at least I'm seeing improvements in that. But definitely that's something that the Habs are going to need to eliminate from their game going forward.
Oh, you gotta think Marty is livid about that too, because again, like, think about it. Minnesota scored 4 goals tonight. One was in overtime, which they had a power play to start, which can often shift the momentum. Though I'm not gonna say that was a direct, like, leading directly to the goal, because it kind of wasn't. But other than that, 2 power play goals. Like, it just straight up was the difference in this game. If Minnesota gets 1 fewer power play goal, Montreal wins in regulation 3-2, right? Like it's these bad penalties too. And like you said, it's not just these, it's not like they're all like, okay, you can take that. No, it's just like kind of ones where, oh, wow, I wish you would have avoided that kind of thing. So definitely stuff to learn, but at the same time, you still get a point out of Minnesota, who is rolling since they've hired John Hines and fired Dean Evison. They've been on a bit of a tear. I wanted to talk about Sam Montembeault. Probably his worst game of the season, but again, it wasn't that really his fault. Like that Boldy goal early was kind of fanned on the shot, went up over the shoulder, bit of a knuckler. Same thing with the Rossi shot, and other than that, he looked pretty good. But I wanted to talk a bit about Emil Heineman, because this was his NHL debut, and we can't leave him out. Do I have the picture? There it is. Emil Heineman. Well, this was earlier, expected to make his NHL debut. They saw Pizzetta doing extra laps at practice, and sure enough, he did make his debut. Now, again, he only played just about under 6 minutes, so I'll just bring that back up so you guys can take a look. Heineman only played 5:56. He had 10 shifts. But he had 20 seconds of power play ice time. It was a bit interesting. Now, so did Stevens. It was more of like the fourth line was out. Well, yeah, anyway, it is what it is. But still, I mean, it was cool to see him out there, Jesse. I saw him actually force a turnover early. We didn't really get to see him use his hard, heavy shot very much. But 6 minutes, did you have any thoughts on Heineman? Other than like, hey, I mean, this is pretty awesome that he finally is getting his shot in the NHL.
Yeah, super happy to see him in the NHL. I really like what he brings to this team. Obviously, he's going to need to really earn his ice time and very limited role here tonight. But when he was on the ice, made a great defensive play, back checking early, a couple big hits, which we can kind of expect from him. So, I mean, again, a very interesting player when you can have a great shot, but then can lay some very heavy body checks, seems to be embracing the North American game quite a bit. So, definitely very excited to see more from this player. I like him.
Yeah, I like Emil Heineman. I mean, I feel like the Habs have so many guys where we're like, gosh, I want to see him with the good guys. I want to see him with Suzuki or Caufield, right? Like that kind of thing. It's the same thing with Joshua Wass, same thing with Emil Heineman. We saw Ullinen thrive when he was with them, right? The thing is, they can't all play together. And you're going to have to start producing on the fourth line if you really want to, move your way up to the top. It's what Slav has done. And maybe Heineman will do that in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, nice first game from him. Congratulations to Emil Heineman for playing in your first NHL game. Yeah, it was a fun one. Despite the loss, I think the Habs can take a lot to learn from this game and still got a point in the standings, so stay at about 500. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, help us hit 10,000 subs. We'd really, really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.